Hello and welcome back to Toledo Aquaponics. It's day 31 and I finally have fish. Lakeway tilapia sent out my order today. Well, actually they sent it out yesterday. It arrived this morning. I have 22 blue tilapia. They are very healthy, very happy. They arrived earlier this morning. I took about 2 hours to acclimate them, a little bit slower than usual, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose any, seeing I only had so many. And I'm kind of running with that. So basically the water from Lakeway tilapia that they pack in is about 80 degrees and 8.0 pH. So I had to slowly both cool it down as well as lower the pH, which is one of the reasons I left my pH a little bit on the high side before doing this, because a pH change greater than about one actual point, so 1.0 or 1.2, is actually can be damaging to the fish, and you will end up with shocking the fish and you can kill them. Same thing with temperature. You want it within about 5 degrees. So luckily my water temperature was high enough that I was able to slowly acclimate them to my current temperature and went from there. Like I said, they've been in here for about 6 hours now and I have no dead fish. I have no very slow fish. I do have a couple fish on the bottom here, and you're not going to be able to see it with this netting here. That are kind of just like to chill on the bottom, but all the fish at some point have all come up, spent some time in the light, and chewed on some of the algae. So what I did was basically just pulled a couple of the grow stones from my grow beds that have the really dark, like forest green algae, and I've been letting these guys chew on them because that's actually what they love. Tilapia are actually herbivores. Typically in the natural setting, especially when they're smaller, they eat smaller pond plants and algae. So as they get bigger, they move away from the algae. But that's one of the benefits of some of the pond grade tilapia that you'll find that stay smaller, because they don't really get over like 8 inches or so. They're able to stay to the shallows and basically clean up a lot of your floating plants and things like that. Some of your algae and other things that some pond people don't want to keep the water looking very nice. These are aquaponics grade tilapia, so these are kind of in the middle ground. They're not going to grow as fast as the pure food grade, but they're also going to generate a little bit more waste for me, which is what I need for the aquaponics system. I currently have 22 of them. I have one of these guys that is an escape artist. He ended up over here in my swirl filter, which was kind of annoying. It took me a little bit while to get him out. But honestly, it's not the end of the world. I have if you've been following my Twitter at all, I have an Oatly inline drain filter on this 2-inch pipe on the bottom, as well as I have a 2-inch end cap. So I put in the Oatly just because it's a smaller diameter, so it should be harder for the fish. These guys are still pretty small, so they barely would fit in between those holes. And honestly, if they're really determined, they'll get through there. I also have another kind of bird filter, bird cap that I found in the piping supply for vents to be able to keep rodents and things out of your piping, that I shoved on the end of that one to kind of add to a double up to make sure that I don't end up with anything in any of my grow beds. I also went through, and when I came out here this afternoon after leaving them alone for a while, and I did find one in the swirl filter, I drained the end bed there, the very furthest one. I pulled the fitting completely out and let it drain for a couple minutes to actually really make sure there weren't any fish in there. And if there were, I was going to transplant them back into the system. So other than the one that ended up in my swirl filter, the rest of them have been kind of just driving along. To kind of cover how to acclimate tilapia, depending on what kind of bag they come in. From Lakeway tilapia, they actually come in a membrane bag, so they're actually not packed in oxygen. The bag itself will actually allow it to breathe, so that way the fish can survive and get oxygen. Whereas other fish, you'll end up with, they'll be packed in like pure O2 or something like that, and those bags you'll typically take them and you'll put them in your tank and float them, and that way the water temperature finally matches and then you can let them in. Well, with the Lakeway tilapia bag that they use, you can't actually do that. You actually suffocate your fish. So I had to open up the bag and slowly add in about a cup of water every 10 to 15 minutes to just slowly bring the temperature down so that it was a little bit closer, because I mean, it was honestly within 5 degrees when they first got here, but it was still a little bit too far away for my liking. It was on the very end of that. It was about a 5-degree difference. As well as the pH, like I said, they pack them in 8.0 water, and my pH was about 7.2, 7.3. when they got here. So I wanted to kind of slowly acclimate them to the pH as well. And like I said, it's been 6 hours. All these guys have been swimming around. They're very active. They've been moving all the way throughout the tank, all the way from the bottom all the way to the top. And they have gone nuts over the algae. I just added a light in here now, just because tilapia do need light. That is one thing they need. About 18 hours of light is really good for them. So right now I have a daylight compact fluorescent bulb on here. It's not the best option, but it'll do. And then eventually I have a stronger light that I'm actually going to shove above here. I might even go as far as to take that 4-foot T5 that I have and put it above both of these tanks. But I'm going to look for something a little bit smaller, a little bit more compact. Maybe some of those 2-foot T5s or something else with a relatively high output. This actually puts out quite a bit of light on its own. I think it's about 1300 lumens. So for what they need, this will do, at least, especially for now. I will eventually put this on a timer, so that way it's running on for every 18 hours. But these guys are so cute. They run around. They've been feeding on algae basically since I put them in here. I just grabbed a couple rocks and shoved them in here since when I got out of here this afternoon. So I gave them about 4 to 5 hours to kind of adjust before I started feeding them a little bit. And like I said, their actual food will be here Friday. So once that gets in, I'll be good to go and I'll start feeding them on a regular schedule. And I will go over my automatic fish feeder that I will be using to kind of make up for the 6 to 10 feedings that these guys need. Once they get really big and they're finally on actually the 3rd stage of their life, because right now they're in stage 1. After they get to stage 1, they'll get stage 2 is very short. It's only a couple weeks, and then stage 3 is the longest. Once they get to stage 3, they only need about 2 to 4 feedings a day. So that'll be a lot easier, and that I can even do manually if I want. But when these guys are really small, doing 6 to 10 feedings, a lot of people like me work during the day. It's kind of hard to do. You might have somebody at home or somebody you can walk by and have them feed your fish or something like that. I don't really have that here. So I have a automatic fish feeder that once I get, like I said, the food in, I'm going to kind of show it off. It's not one of those barrel feeders because those things just suck. A lot of them just, they're not very good. The goal with feeding your tilapia is to get them to their 3rd stage as quickly as possible. The 1st stage is a very small, very granular pellet. It's a sinking pellet, but it's very small. And I'll show you that when that gets here Friday. Their 2nd stage is more of your traditional, still a pellet. It's still a sinking pellet, but it's also still small, and it's still expensive. The 3rd stage is where they're going to spend most of their time, and that's more your traditional floating like pellet, like what you'd see like your pond sticks and things like that. It's about that size. So that's what you want to get, because that food is very inexpensive and it's very good for your fish. So I mean, all the foods are very good for the fish, and you do not want to skip that little middle interim there that's about 2 weeks or so in their development cycle. You do not want to skip. So I will be using Aquaponics fish food, and I will go do an entire video on that later to kind of go over my feeding cycle and everything else, as well as how to do them. But basically with the Aquaponics, they have really great feed charts out there. Pretty much all you really need to do is weigh your fish once from the start, and you don't really need to weigh them ever again. So I will be going over that also in a video, is how to weigh my fish, well, how to weigh your fish if you want to. And then I'm going to weigh them, and then I'll build a custom feed chart based on the weight of these guys. Right now I only have, like I said, 22 of these guys in here, and they're not the biggest guys in the world. So I will get them all set up. I'll go over the feed charts and feed, as well as the auto feeder in a later video. But I just wanted to do a video update for today. I do have my fish in, and I did cover this with bird netting. It is not actually really needed at this point, but I kind of just want to let them get used to it, because as they get bigger, this will be, because this is a very shallow tank. I only have a couple inches between the water level and the top, so they could easily jump out of this, and I don't want that. So I will be doing that. This is right now is just held together in a very temporary. I just took some paracord and put basically a belt on here that's extremely tight, and then I just tuck the bird netting underneath, so that way it's nice, it's tension, it'll stop them from getting out. And honestly, that's all you really need for the fish. It stops them from getting out on top of it. It makes sure that they stay in, so even if they do jump, it basically pushes them back in the water. And this stuff really won't hurt them. Right now, at the size that they are, and I think they all went to the bottom on me, they honestly could still make it through this. But once they get a little bit bigger, they won't be able to get through here. So that's kind of my goal for today, is to kind of make sure that these guys go good, going to check on them one more time tonight, and then I'll check on them in the morning, and I will do a video update first thing in the morning to kind of check for any dead fish, because at that point that's the end of like the 12-hour kind of danger area. So far I don't think I'm going to have any. These guys are doing really well. They're very active. They do slow down a little bit and go to the bottom and play around a little bit, but they are very active. They are very happy feeding. So I really don't think I'm not seeing any signs of sickness, disease, or anything to watch out for. So these guys should be really good. Again, this is Toledo Aquaponics. This is my day 31 update. I have fish, so thank you.